Picture this. Your daughter throws a full meltdown, not because something terrible happened, because the food on her plate touched. The mashed potatoes graze the green beans. And you, like every reasonable parent on earth, do what feels natural. You sigh. You say, "Stop being so dramatic." Maybe you raise your voice. Maybe you try to console her with logic. It's just food, sweetie. It all mixes in your stomach anyway. You're doing it out of love. But here is what neuroscience has discovered, and what most parents will never be told. That response, the sighing, the dismissing, the stop overreacting, may be quietly dismantling your daughter's trust in her own mind. Not because you're a bad parent, because you don't yet have the right map for the territory you're navigating. Her brain is not wired the way you think it is. And today, that changes. We're going to walk through 6 habits that look strange, frustrating, or even alarming from the outside. Each one carries a hidden signal, but I need you to stay until habit number 6, because habit number 6 is the rarest. It is the one sign that most parents misread as a social problem, and it is actually the clearest indicator of a mind operating at an extraordinary frequency. By the end of this video, you will never look at your daughter the same way again. That is not a promise I make lightly. Let's begin. She gets called bossy, sensitive, difficult, too much. Teachers write notes home. Other parents give you that look at birthday parties. And somewhere, quietly, you start to wonder, is something wrong with her? Here's the myth, that these behaviors are personality flaws, that they need to be corrected, softened, managed. Here is the science. Research from the Davidson Institute for Talent Development, published in 2019, found that girls with IQs in the top 2% are consistently misidentified in early childhood as having behavioral disorders rather than advanced cognitive profiles. The behaviors are identical on the surface. The origin is completely different. Her brain does not process the world the way her peers do. It processes faster, deeper, with more simultaneous threads running at once. Think of it this way. Most children's brains are receiving a standard broadcast signal. Hers is receiving every frequency at the same time, with no filter, no volume knob, and no instruction manual. What looks like difficulty is actually density. What looks like oversensitivity is actually precision. Her nervous system is not broken. It is extraordinarily, almost uncomfortably, alive. Here is where parents are most blindsided. Your daughter can sit at the dinner table and explain climate change with a coherence that makes adults go quiet. She can argue ethics. She can identify logical inconsistencies in the rules you set. She uses vocabulary that makes relatives raise their eyebrows. And then, 20 minutes later, she collapses into sobs because her sleeve got wet. You think, how can she be so smart and so immature at the same time? She is not contradicting herself. She is demonstrating something that developmental psychologists call asynchronous development. Dr. Linda Silverman at the Gifted Development Center in Denver has studied this phenomenon for over 4 decades. Her findings are clear. In highly intelligent girls, the intellectual age and the emotional age develop on completely separate timelines. A girl who is 7 years old chronologically may carry the intellectual maturity of an 11 or 12-year-old, while her emotional regulation system, which is governed by the prefrontal cortex, is still operating exactly at 7. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's regulation center, does not fully mature until the mid-20s. In gifted children, the gap between what the mind can conceive and what the nervous system can manage is significantly wider than in neurotypical peers. She can theorize. She cannot yet contain. That is not weakness. That is the price of an accelerated mind living inside a still developing body. Before we go further, I want to ask you something directly. In the comments below, tell me, which of these behaviors have you seen in your daughter? How long did you think it was just a phase? Your answer might help another parent who is watching this right now and feeling completely alone. She refuses to wear certain shirts. The tag drives her to distraction. She walks into a room and immediately notices the flickering of a light that no one else can see. A smell that is faint to you is overwhelming to her. You have probably heard the word fussy. Let me introduce you to a different word: overexcitability. Polish psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski identified 5 categories of heightened reactivity that appear disproportionately in individuals with exceptional intelligence: psychomotor, intellectual, imaginational, emotional, and psychosexual. But the one most visible in young girls is sensory overexcitability. A 2017 study from the University of Warwick examining neurological processing speed in children aged 5 through 12 found that gifted children demonstrated measurably higher synaptic density in sensory processing regions of the brain. In simple terms, they capture more data per second than their peers. Every texture, every frequency of sound, every variation in light temperature, every molecule of scent in the air. Her nervous system is not malfunctioning. It is operating at a resolution that most human beings simply do not have access to. The shirt tag that barely registers to you sends a constant, unrelenting signal through her nervous system. This is not fussiness. This is not manipulation. This is a girl living in a world that is, quite literally, louder than the one you inhabit. If this kind of science-backed parenting is what you're here for, subscribe right now. We decode the child's brain every single week, and what we publish here is not available in any parenting book on the market. She is 8 years old, and she is furious about injustice. Not her own injustice, the world's. She wants to know why people are hungry, why the school rule about lining up by height exists, why the teacher punishes the whole class for one student's behavior. She does not let things go. She cannot let things go. And you, exhausted, wonder why she cannot just accept that life is not fair and move on. Here is what is actually happening beneath the surface. The prefrontal cortex, specifically the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, governs moral reasoning. A 2021 longitudinal study from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child found that in children identified as intellectually advanced, this region demonstrates accelerated myelination, meaning the neural pathways responsible for ethical reasoning become insulated and efficient years ahead of the typical developmental schedule. Her brain is, neurologically, running an adult-level moral operating system. She is not being defiant. She is not disrespecting authority. She is a sophisticated ethical processor inside a child's social context, surrounded by peers who are not yet running the same software. When she challenges the rule, she is not asking you to abandon structure. She is asking for the rule to make sense. She is asking for integrity. And that instinct, that refusal to accept arbitrary systems, is not something to suppress. It is something to direct. She starts a drawing. 30 seconds in, she crumples it. She refuses to try the math problem. She will not write the first sentence of the essay. You think, she is lazy. She is afraid of failure. She needs more encouragement. Here is the more precise explanation. Her mind can construct the finished product at a level of detail that is almost architectural. She can see exactly how the drawing should look, exactly how the sentence should sound. And when her hand, governed by fine motor skills that are still maturing, produces something that does not match the internal image, the gap is devastating. A 2020 paper from Stanford's Center for Education Research identified this pattern, which they termed internal standard mismatch, as one of the primary reasons gifted girls disengage from academic tasks in early childhood. The standard they hold themselves to is not the teacher's standard. It is their own. And it is ferocious. She would rather produce nothing than produce something she considers mediocre. This is not laziness. This is a girl who has already internalized excellence before she has the physical tools to execute it. The intervention is not more pressure. It is permission. Permission to produce something imperfect, out loud, in front of you, without consequence. This is the one I asked you to stay for. She does not want to play with the kids at the party. She drifts toward the adults. She wants to sit next to the grandparent, the teacher, the neighbor who is 63 years old and used to work in engineering. You wonder if something is socially wrong with her. You gently push her toward the kids her age. She resists. She seems to retreat further. Here is what no one tells you. She is not avoiding her peers. She is searching for something her peers cannot yet give her. What developmental psychologist Lyda Stetter-Hollingworth called an intellectual companion. Someone whose vocabulary, curiosity, and reference points match hers. A landmark study from Yale's Child Study Center tracking gifted children over 15 years found that social preference for older individuals or adults and highly intelligent girls was not a predictor of social dysfunction. It was a predictor of intellectual hunger. These girls were not isolated. They were understimulated. Here is the revelation that I promised you. The most dangerous thing you can do, more dangerous than the wrong school, more dangerous than too much screen time, is to consistently redirect her away from those connections. When you say, go play with the kids your age, you are not teaching her social skills. You are teaching her that her natural frequency is wrong, that she should suppress the part of herself that reaches toward depth, that her curiosity is inconvenient. Over time, research shows that suppression does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes shame. And a girl who is ashamed of her intelligence is a girl who stops using it. The adults she gravitates toward are not a red flag. They are the environment her brain is asking for. Let her go sit with the grandparent. Let her follow the teacher after class. Let her find the one person in the room who will take her seriously. That is not isolation. That is self-preservation. Here is what I want you to carry out of this video. None of these habits are problems. Every single one of them is data. Data about a mind that is working harder, faster, and more intensely than the environment around it was designed to accommodate. You now have the map. With this knowledge, the conversations you have with her will be different. The moments you once dreaded, the meltdown over food, the crumpled drawing, the refusal to socialize, will look different to you. You will see the neuroscience underneath. You will respond to what is actually happening, and that changes everything. If this kind of evidence-based lens on your child's development is what you're looking for, subscribe to this channel. We are building a community of parents who refuse to guess, who want the science, who want to raise their children with precision, not just instinct. Like this video if it shifted something for you. Leave a comment and tell me, which habit did you recognize in your daughter? How long did you carry the wrong story about what it meant? And if you want to go deeper, the next video will explore what happens when these traits go unrecognized through adolescence. What the research says about gifted girls in their teenage years is something every parent in this community needs to hear. I will see you there.